Well, hi everyone. Welcome to tonight's Parents as Career Coaches. I'm so glad you made time on this beautiful sunny day to learn how some more strategies to be a good coach for your child as they go through the career development process. And I have a couple goals tonight. I'm really hoping to help you understand the critical role that you play in your child's journey of figuring out what they want to be when they grow up. And we'll talk about that question. I'm going to help provide kind of a structure to this process that hopefully will help you help your child and help them understand this process so that they have some more confidence as they move towards these decisions, and have lots of great resources to share with you. So before we get started, I wanted to just share a little bit about myself. So I am one of the career readiness consultants for the Kent Intermediate School District, and I really am a career development geek. I started liking the subject when I was in high school. I was a high school senior, and I remember thinking, how do we figure this stuff out? Like, how come there aren't all firefighters out there or all nurses? It seemed very evenly distributed. So I found that question kind of be fascinating for myself. And so I started reading career books as a high school senior. I haven't really stopped. I still take career books on vacation with me. I just find the whole subject fascinating of how we find who we are and how we tick and what kind of jobs fit us. I just find that fascinating. So I've been doing this my whole adult career. It's probably a little more than 25 years now. I didn't want to give away my age. I've been in the nonprofit sector working with adult women for about 15 years of my career, and I've been working in education for the last 10. I do have 3 adult children. They're 20, 22, and 24, and they really have been my test cases. It's been really interesting to watch their journeys. And even though as a career developer mom, I've had them do all the right things, they're still having to figure it out on their own. And so it's been very interesting. And, they're young adults and they're finding their way. So it's been great. I really do have a passion of helping people understand who they are and how that connects to work. So I'm very fortunate to be in a position where I can get paid to do this kind of work. I work for the Kent Intermediate School District's Career Readiness Department, and there's a team of 6 of us, and our job really is to help students in Kent County with this career development process, be supportive to our locals by providing different events and programs to support their work and helping your students with this question of, what's after high school. And it really takes all of us. And that's why I'm so glad you're here tonight to be really trained as allies as part of this team to help young people. We have phenomenal educators in our county. We have amazing employers that really give us so much to help young people. So like I said, it really takes all of us. So to get us started though, before we go to the next slide, I'd really love for you to share in the chat your children's grade, and you can share their first name if you'd like, but I would like to have let's do their first name, what grade they're in, and if you could think of one characteristic about them that you admire, I'd like you to include that in your answer, please. So their grade, their name, their grade, and then one word that describes an attribute or characteristic about your child. I'd love to read that. So thank you for participating. Got a 10th grader, 8th grader, 9th grader. Got some focus, determination, exuberant, fun-loving. How about Tayton? Brenda, what's one of those words that describe Tayton? I'd love to hear that. I love these positive words. So Tayton's enthusiastic. That's great. So we're going to come back to some of those thoughts in just a couple slides, but it's great to kind of know that I'm working with some parents, in a lot of those younger grades. And I'm so glad that you're here today to learn some information. I have some great resources that are really going to be helpful to you as you move through this journey with your children, your child. So to get us started, I just want to provide a definition of really what career development is. So we're all working kind of from a standard definition. And really, career development is a lifelong process of managing learning, work, leisure, and transitions in order to move toward a personally determined and evolving preferred future. What do you think about that definition? How many of you feel like you're still in that lifelong process? I hear that from adults a lot. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I know, Wendy. I hear that from a lot of adults that they're still trying to figure it out. So know that that's normal. You know, this isn't something that we just figure out one day and then we're good to go. It's a process, and our young people are at that beginning of that process, and we're going to help guide them through it. And it's a lifelong, though. It's very circular in some ways, and I'll show you a really great graphic that helps us understand that. So that's the working definition. So again, notice that personally determined, that this is your child's work. This isn't something we get to tell them what to do. They get to determine it, but there's some steps they could do to help them along the way. I also want to point out that it's developmental, you guys. This career development process is developmental. Just like our children learn to walk at different times, they learn to talk at different times. It's the same with developmental around careers. Some figure it out really early. They have that confidence. They know what they want to do. They've taken action steps, and some they're late bloomers. And so there's no right or wrong. I really want to encourage you today to keep your eyes on your children, because what I've learned through this work is that when we really start to look around at other people's kids, it starts to steal our joy. Comparison is the thief of joy. It's one of my favorite quotes. And so the goal as career coaches for our children is to keep our blinders on and focus on our children. Who are they? What are their skills and talents? What are their interests? And what's going to be the best education or process for them after high school to get there? Because we get real discouraged when we noticed, so-and-so's, kids doing this, that, getting into this program, grade points, success. We start to get anxious. So that is really my encouragement to you tonight, is to help put that in perspective, that just like we started getting anxious, we saw maybe our kid wasn't walking at the same pace, or we had the pride when our kids were early walkers. This is developmental. We should not be looking at other people's children. So in the chat room, I would love for you to think for a minute, who made a positive or negative impact on you and your career choices when you were in high school or early childhood? Would you share that with me in the chat, or unmute yourself? I'd love to hear a story or two of somebody that was impactful, either positive or negatively, about your career choices. So one of our Crystals said that her 7th grade teacher really affirmed her that she'd be a good teacher herself. That's great. And Wendy's saying that no one ever talked to her. And that's unfortunate too. I'm sorry to hear that. I've heard lots of stories over the years of people who've had people speaking truth and positivity, and some people saying those comments that just tear us down, right? I love it, Joe, that you had someone who took an interest to you and kind of steered you toward graduate school. That's fantastic. My own sister had a story. She wanted to be a special education teacher. That was what she really wanted to do. And we were having dinner with our uncle and aunt. Our uncle happened to be a PhD in education. And when he asked my sister what she wanted to do, she said she wanted to be a special ed teacher. And he said, why would you want to do that? And that one comment from him derailed her, because we had a lot of respect for our uncle. He was very influential in our lives. And when he gave her that reaction, that kind of threw her off her game, and she ended up kind of changing her major. And she will tell you to this day, at 55 years old, that kind of derailed her life. She ended up getting an associate's degree, but it was just a struggle, and she never did get into that. Although now she's making moves to get into serving students. But we have a lot of power in our words, and that's part of the reason that I wanted to point out. It could be a word or an encouragement, how that can make an impact on us. And we as parents and guardians of young people have a lot of impact. And there's been lots of research showing the impact of adults and parents on those decisions with their kids. On a scale of 1 to 10 in the chat, tell me how much you think you have an influence on your child. Do you think you have a lot, kind of medium, low? Thinking about your own child and your relationships and how things are going already. How much of an impact do you think that you have with what they have going on? Got a range, 5, 8.2, 9, 9 to 10. For your daughter, it's a 4, a 9. So a variety of scores. Yeah, and you may not know. So this will be an encouragement to you as you move forward to know that you have a lot of influence, believe it or not. So based on some studies, teens perceive their parents on the graph on the right. Students perceive that their parents have 26 or 56%, that they have a high level of influence on them. That's what students think. But on the left, parents perceive that they only have 26% influence on their kids. So even though we may not feel it, students think it. And if you don't know what your child might think, trust me, they do take into account what you have to say. They may not show it because they're teenagers, but know that everything that you say, good and bad, can impact the career decisions of your children. So that's just one of those things I want to put out in front of you today. So this whole post-secondary planning can be very emotional. It's not for all parents and their kids, but for some, it can be a really anxiety producing part of life. And there's a lot of pressure from society, from our peers. Kids get a lot of pressure, whether we like it or not. We're giving off our expectations, what we think they should be doing and not doing. And so it can be very stressful. And I love this, this comic strip here. The young teenager's like, whoa, and his ears are popping. He's like, that's weird, my ears just popped because the high pressure front is moving in. The dad's like, I don't feel anything. There isn't anything like that in the forecast, but do you realize your college application is due in 2 years and you haven't even started your essays? Mom's freaking out. And that explains it, says the teenager. And the dad's like, yep, I feel it now too. Anyone felt pressure from this process? And maybe hopefully not. If your kids are younger, you haven't felt that pressure. I know a lot of parents of seniors right now are really feeling it with decisions around college, scholarship, paying for it. It's just a lot of anxiety and pressure right now for seniors. But I'm just wondering if any of you can relate to that slide. Probably our senior parents or people have gone through the stage a little more than the others. I want to just remind you what kids are going through. There's just a lot of stress at this age. And so I want us to really put that lens on as we're guiding our students that they're under a lot of pressure. And in red there at the very bottom, it just says that teenagers are actually the most stressed out group, even more than adults. They rate their own stress levels as 5.8 out of 10. And adults are 5.1. So they have everything from, who am I becoming and how do I fit in, and the pandemic on top of it, the isolation, their future, so much going on. And so this can be a very stressful time. So just to put that out there, to have that empathy as they make these decisions, that we need to be that cheerleader for them because they have so much pressure coming from other places. And sometimes as I've worked with parents over these last 10 years in the education sector, so much of what I see is the adult anxiety. Are they going to get to where they need to be? How much debt are they going to have? Are they going to live in my basement? Maybe comparing themselves to other people's kids. They don't feel like their kids, making it like they should be. So we have a lot of our own anxieties and stress. And so I just wanted to kind of put that out there so we can kind of self-check ourselves and go, okay, breathe. They're young. They're going to figure this out. It's a journey. Because again, they don't need that pressure from us. And I know that a lot of young people feel that. Many young people I talk to feel like the decisions they're making right now, they're not going to be able to change. They're going to be stuck with it the rest of their lives. And that's part of that stress and anxiety that they experience. And a lot of my work is really helping them understand that every decision you make leads to the next thing, but there's no finality in it. You can always make a change. You can always leave a job. You can change what you want to do. We're not stuck. Everything builds on it. The skill sets that you gather into your little suitcase. I try to have them understand they're born with a little suitcase of interests and natural skill sets, and that everything they do along the path is adding to it. But you're not doomed. It's just not an end point. And so again, I want to encourage you as parents to help communicate that to them. So what we're shooting for as coaches for our kids is that our young people would have career maturity. And again, that's developmental. Not every kid's going to have it at the same time, but we're really looking by the time they're graduating that they have an appreciation that there's actually some steps they have to take to get to this post-high school situation, whatever that is. You can't just wait till the day of graduation to figure it out. So that they will engage in this process, that they're willing to, that they have that willingness to face reality, that I got to start talking about this. I got to start making some action steps. That they understand how to explore careers, that they have those skills, and how to make decisions. And I have some great resources that will spell it out. They're workbooks for parents around career coaching. There's some great stuff. Canada's really far ahead on some of this. And so I've downloaded some of those and we'll be sharing those with you. Know that we can help teach them these skills. And there's some great activities in these books. Really that step 3 of knowledge of self, that they understand kind of how they fit to the world of work. And a lot of that comes from that self-assessment piece, which I'll talk about, exploration, and talking to adults who are in careers. There's lots of ways we can help them. But these are the 3 steps that we're really looking for to help kids make their way to those decisions at graduation, and so that they can make a plan. That's really what we need them to do, right? And it's gonna be based on who they are. So teens need to start thinking about, what am I interested in? And this doesn't have to, be as a senior. This starts very early. You start to notice, you as an observer start to notice your child having natural interests, that they have natural skill sets. I remember thinking my Daniel was so task oriented. I just remember thinking, wow, he actually starts a task and finishes it. That's not something I did naturally. So I remember observing that about him. As career coaches, our job is to affirm them. My daughter Hope, she was so good with kids. She just had this natural affinity for them. They loved her, she loved them. And to affirm her in that, man, I really see that kids sparkle, their eyes sparkle when they talk with you more than the average kid. So you're observing it, affirm them in it, but then giving them opportunities to develop that is really important. So it doesn't have to start in high school. What skills do they have naturally, like I just mentioned? What courses they should be taking in high school? These are conversations that, school personnel start in junior high, but again, it's not pressure with kids, but making it a fun activity. Look at all that your school offers. What would be fun for you to take? What would be interesting to you and why? What are the steps that actually, what do I need to do to get there? What problem, I have to give that question of what do you want to be when you grow up? It's been asked for so long. And when I ask teenagers that question, I physically see them react. Like, they just get so anxious and they tighten up. And so I heard JD Kasep, he worked for Google, he's their education guru, and he was proposing the question, what problem do they want to, what kind of problem do you want to solve? And so I tested it out with a group of 11th graders, and it was so fun to see the reaction when I posed that question. It got real quiet for a while. They weren't sure what to do with that question, actually. What kind of problem do I want to solve versus what do I want to be when I grow up? But then the answers started coming. I remember a girl said, I would like to work somewhere with cancer. My grandma just passed away, and I know it's something with cancer. I don't know what yet, but I want to work in that field. A boy said, I want to work with water. I want to make sure everybody has safe water to drink. Another young woman talked about she wanted to make things beautiful. She was an artist. So when we started asking different questions, we got some answers that got them thinking. And then we can help them understand what kind of jobs use that artistic ability. What kind of jobs are in hydrology and making the water sources safe for people or equitable. What kind of jobs are behind the scenes in a oncology unit, and even what that word oncology means, right? So that's kind of a fun one. We want kids to start understanding the steps it takes to get to an occupation. I'm going to share some of our programming that we have that helps kids understand that. What an apprenticeship is. It's an on-the-job training versus going to school for a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree. They need to know their options. So that's part of this process. How are they going to pay for it? Are they going to take out student loans or their scholarships? Could they do on-the-job training and have an employer pay for it? And where do they get this information? So as coaches, these are the things that kids are going to be wondering, and how we can help them as coaches get the answers that they need. How are we doing so far? I know I can get talking. I get real passionate about this stuff. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to put them in the chat, okay? So young people, some kind of take this subject and run with it. I've certainly met young people who are very excited about figuring this all out. Some want to ignore it. And it causes them a lot of anxiety and they just rather not talk about it. And that causes obviously parents anxiety because the years are ticking by and they're getting closer to graduation and they haven't really talked about it or made any action steps. Some kids have learned that if they can just make a decision and be able to say an answer to the question of what you want to be when you grow up, it takes a lot of expectation off them. So I meet young people who will say, I want to be a neurosurgeon. And I'm like, that's great. You know, tell me about your science classes. And they're like, oh, I don't really like science. But usually the reaction they get when they don't say that to a career developer, I want to be a neurosurgeon. And adults go, wow, that's great. You know, it's very positive. My daughter wanted to be a social worker. And I'd love to know your first reaction when young people say they want to be social workers. What do you think she got as responses from adults? We put a few ideas in the chat. When my daughter started telling adults she wanted to be a social worker, what did people say to her? Yep, little pay, you're gonna get burned out, you're not gonna make enough money. Those are exactly the things that she started to hear. And she even went on a college visit and she went to the social work class and the professor told her, why would you want to do that? You'll be broken, burned out. So as a high school senior, my daughter's plan started getting rocked a little bit by the adults and it kind of threw her off her game. Actually, she was a freshman in college by now. And I had to kind of rein her in. No one ever talks about you're gonna be able to impact people's lives. You know, you're gonna help people make change for the better. You know, you're gonna be a support for people in a very difficult time in their lives. People don't talk about that. And so what my daughter shared with me is after she started getting this kind of feedback and she talked with some classmates at college about it, is they just give an answer they know that adults will like and that they'll get positive affirmation. So she started telling people that she wanted to work in talent acquisition at the hospital. What kind of responses do you think she got? A lot of approval, a lot of nods of hey, that's cool. Now she graduated with her psych degree and she's married now in Washington, DC. She's working at the hospital. It's where she worked in high school and college. And she loves that setting, but she's not sure if she's going to get her master's in social work or talent acquisition or or hospital administration. She's still figuring it out, but it definitely threw her off her game. Sometimes students are making decisions that aren't necessarily based in reality. When someone tells me they want to be a neurosurgeon and then I find out they're not even good in their science classes now, obviously they haven't done the research of what it takes to become a neurosurgeon, but we can help them understand that there's some other jobs that happen in the surgery room when the surgery is going on. So that takes some conversation as we dig into what their skill sets and talents are. Some young people have that attitude of it's going to work out. That's a great attitude, but you got to take some steps to get there. The third one, which I kind of just skipped over, they know how to give answers in relation to their social context. There's some districts that are very pro-college, and a young person who maybe would be better suited to an apprenticeship, working with their hands and being in the skilled trades, isn't going to get that positive affirmation than maybe if they were in a different district. And again, that's why we really need to keep our blinders on of who our kid is, because if you have a young person who's very good at creating and building and just has that work ethic of making things happen, apprenticeship is the best way for them to go. They're gonna, in 4 years, be earning a family supporting wage without an ounce of college debt through their apprenticeship. So we really need to help young people understand what's best for them and the best way to get there. So those are just some of the common reactions that young people will have. They'll give a quick decision, they'll ignore it, they'll give you an answer just to take your anxiety and energy down. And I'm not saying all young people, but certainly from the young people I've met, they've learned how adults are acting and what the expectations are, and they're gonna play a game a little bit. They're gonna play the game. So I want us to be aware as career coaches of our kids to really be aware of our own expectations. What are we communicating about expectations, you know, subtly? My parents, my dad was a skilled trades person and my mom was a diploma nurse, which means she went to a nursing school in Canada. She didn't go through a degree. So my parents, it was always, it's not if you were going to college, it's which one. That was just the expectation. Again, my sister Karen, who wanted to be the special ed teacher, she's also very good with her hands. She would have thrived in an apprenticeship situation, but that was not given as an option. So that was also part of her early challenges around career development, is that it was just like, we're going to college. What are you going to do? Figure it out. We all have our own fears. What is your worst fear about this process for your child, figuring out what they want to be when they grow up? Or the opposite of what is your goal for them? What do you want for them? Why is this so important for you? Or what are you afraid that won't happen? Do you mind sharing that in the career chat or the chat, please, for me? What's one of your fears around career development? What do you hope for your child? I know I hear a lot of fears around college debt, failure to launch kind of situations, not being able to support themselves, pay rent because rent's so expensive. And a lot of it, fear of pushing them too soon. Yeah, it's being aware of our own expectations, our own fears, our own biases, so that we're not inadvertently discouraging them. I had a parent who told me, can you talk my child out of using their art? Like they're not gonna be able to support themselves. Can you help me talk them out of it? It's like, well, I can't do that. I can't talk someone out of their natural gifting. We can help them figure out how they can use their natural creative abilities to get a job that uses those skill sets. I see your answers that, you're worried that they're going to be unhappy, that they're unaware of what might be available to them. You want them to be able to take care of themselves at a level that allows them to be healthy and not stress about money. Absolutely. And so that's why us helping our children understand even the income, what certain jobs make, that's part of the research, which we're going to talk about. So again, for most of us, we want our children to be happy, to be using their natural skills and talents, that their lives are rewarding, right? So I'm just going to go through a few slides that talk about our role as a career coach. And then I'm going to be spending some time actually sharing the process of career development with you and modeling some activities that you could do with your child. And I'm going to go through some things about one of the workbooks I'm going to give to you, and I'm going to give you the link in the chat. I also have them on our Parents as Career Coaches website. But I want to start off a little bit about our role. So as a career coach, our role is to really be a guide, a helper, a supporter, an encourager. And I love the word ally. An ally is someone who helps or cooperates with another. Our job is not to tell them what to do, to move them too much, like pushing them past where their comfort level is. It's like, pushing a child to walk before they're ready. It's self-defeating. And so we have to be in tune with them and get that balance of when to push, when not to, when the anxiety is there, when to bring in an outside person to work on the subject. Sometimes that's a good strategy at this age, depending on the dynamics of the parent-child relationship. But our goal really is to be that helper, supporter, and encourager. So helping your child find their passions and explore their interests, that's what we can do. We can help ask questions, we can affirm them, we can help them identify camps that are happening in town or opportunities at school that they might not have heard about, helping them discover some of that. How many of you have actually shared your own career path with your child or other family members? Have they shared? Really thinking back to what it was like to make those decisions. That's really helpful for young people. They want to know what your process was. They're trying to figure this out. How do I get from high school to there? That's what they're wondering. That's the first question so many of them want to know when we connect them with career role models. How did you figure this out? And so being able to share those stories and experiences with yourself or with others is really helpful to them. The third one, helping your teens set challenging but achievable career goals. In one of the workbooks I'm going to give you, there's actually a contract in the front of committing to a certain amount of time to work through some of the activities together. They actually talk about incentivizing it. I did it with my number 3. I actually paid other people to do this kind of career development self-assessment with my kids because I felt like I was too close to it. It's a service that I offer on kind of a side business that I have, but I was too close with my own kids, so I paid other people to do it. Number 3, though, I said, I have this much money that if you commit to doing these activities, with fidelity and take it seriously, you can have the cash. And he did. And I'm not about bribing. I think bribing is a good thing because this is sometimes something that teenagers aren't developmentally ready to do, but they also have a lot of other things on their minds. And so when we set aside a time on a Saturday with a bribe, he got it done. It really affirmed him of what he was thinking and actually what I was thinking about him too. So again, recognizing them and affirming them for the effort they put into a project, studying hard, getting, taking those steps they need to do to set a goal and achieve it. That's our job. We can recognize it and affirm them. Mistakes happen. That's part of our growing. That's part of our learning, and supporting them, when they make mistakes or when they choose an activity that they end up not liking, how do we encourage them to stick it out and persevere through it, help them understand they're going to learn from that. That's part of our role. You have a great network around you, so you can be part of an ally to help your kids connect with people or resources like tonight that are going to help them with their career decisions. That's a great role for you as a career coach, is to be that extra person in their corner that's going to help them figure this out. The whole trying on thing, the first one and the third one on here, just encouraging them to try new things. I remember when I was in high school, we had just moved and I wanted to join the basketball team because it's something I had done at my old school, but I was petrified of the new school experience, meeting the new people. And I never forget, my mom literally used her feet to kick me out of the van that we were in. And as 2 girls were approaching the van, she flagged them down and said, "Hi, this is my daughter, Krista. She's new here." And I was so embarrassed, but yet those girls were so gracious and they took me in and they became my best friends. And so my mom took that role of helping me get over my own anxiety and fears and just kind of help make that happen. And so again, that's going to be a balance with your child and their personality, how much to do that. But for me, that was a really good experience that she helped me through because of my own fears. Exploring career educational options with your teens. There's so much out there, helping them kind of sort through things and use softwares that are out there to help them discern what schooling might be the best for them based on their decision. That's again where you can really help them. So one of the manuals that I have that I'm going to give you is called Career Coaching for Parents, and it's a guide. And they really focus in on defining what our role is as a coach. And they talk about reflective listening and how we should actually be sitting and listening, kind of active listening in addition to reflective listening. So they're going to actually teach you some of those skills if you don't have them already, or maybe haven't used them for a while. So know that that's part of one of the guides I want to give you. And it really does encourage the independence. This cannot be our work. We cannot care about it more than our kids do. When we're overactive in helping them figure it out, then that takes the responsibility off them. So a lot of this is encouraging them to take the responsibility that is their life, and you want them to have the life that they want. And so learning when to step back, when to encourage, that's the biggest challenge, I think, of the whole career coach thing, is knowing when to push, when not to, right? But encouraging that independence. And so there's self-assessment tools, explorations, and decision-making guidance in this guide. But again, I just want to point out again that we're not the driver, we're the passenger. So I'm gonna actually kind of skip through a few of these slides. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time because they are in the manuals, but again, I don't want to beat a dead horse on this, but again, our job is to support them, to make sure they have the resources they need, to be that sounding board for kids to talk about their frustrations or what they're anxious about. Encouraging them with time management, when they have that little extra time at the holidays, that they'd be doing some activities in the summertime, fitting in maybe some job shadows or some volunteer work so that the time doesn't pass where they haven't done any of the activities. So that's part of our role. And that last one, that parents can be on the lookout for resources to help their teens, which again, you're gonna have lots of tonight. But yeah, we're not gonna grab the wheel, right? We're not gonna have them do a big U-turn based on what we want for them, what we think they should do. It's about what they want. So these are some of those communication strategies that I mentioned are outlined in the manual. And they're important, you know, it's important to talk about their feelings and, you know, brainstorm together and help them evaluate ideas. So these are all important things. But with our time, I want to get into some of the actual steps of what career development is all about. So how are we doing? Are we doing okay? Still weird just like talking to this laptop. All right. So this is just a great visual of what the career development cycle is. And it tends to be a 4-step process for most career development theory that you that we learn about. And I have found that when students see this kind of graphic, it actually helps them take a breath, like, oh, there's a process to this. Like there's some steps that I could do to actually figure this out. And it's not that cut and dry, but it really does. If we do these steps, the kids are so much closer to figuring it out. There's still a journey of having experiences that they just don't know at 17. They're going to have at 19 or 24 that will continue to build on it. But we can certainly do some work in high school and junior high, and even as early as 5th, 6th grade to help them with self-assessment, for example. So let's go through these steps. The first one is self-assessment. And so helping young people understand who they are, right? What their interests are, what their natural personality traits tend to be, what's important to them, and their skills. And I really find high school students love this. Junior high students, when we start to do assessment with them, everyone likes learning about themselves. So this is a really easy step that we can get accomplished pretty quickly with young people when we give them the activities to do. And even asking questions like, you know, who has everything organized in their backpack and has everything in folders, you know, and the students will raise their hands, they love it. Who just shoves it in and is lucky if they remember it the next day? And kids start to laugh because they know that's how they are. You know, who's the one that can make a friend really easily? Who prefers to have kind of a quiet step back? So just asking them questions and helping them notice how they're different than their friends, that's kind of that part of self-assessment as they start to go through this process. So there's some really great activities in these workbooks that will help with that. By state law, schools are supposed to be doing some of this assessment starting in 7th grade. It's called their Educational Development Plan, and students are supposed to be doing their EDP starting in 7th grade. Some school districts are better about it than others, but know that that is a process that the state and districts are supposed to be helping their kids start at junior high to understanding this process, this 4-step process. Step 2 is career exploration. And this is when they've learned about themselves, they understand how they tick a little bit more. They know that, man, I really like working with my hands, I like building things. There's lots of evidence in their young lives that they've been a person who's picked up tools or creates things. When something breaks, they're the first one that wants to try to fix it. There's evidence already. So then they can start to explore how those things start to connect to jobs. And that can be done through a variety of ways. And whether it's using the Occupational Outlook Handbook, which I'll show you, or a website called MyNexmove, there's great internet research tools out there to help kids learn. Talking to people who already do this kind of work to find out how they get into it, what they like about it. That's called informational interviewing. On Friday, we just completed Groundhog Shadow Day, and it was an opportunity for 9th through 12th graders in Kent County to do a virtual job shadow with an employer. And we had about 120 plus employers that were working with us, and we had about 1,200 kids signed up. Of course, we had a snow day, so only probably 300 to 400 actually did it, but it was a way that students could literally meet somebody in a career of interest, hear their story, hear what their work was about, and ask questions. It was such a great day of career exploration on Friday. We have lots more programming to talk about. Job shadowing, when COVID's over, you know, to really help students get into a workplace, to see it. Sometimes it's smelling it. Sometimes you get to taste it. We had students that were down at Meijer's test kitchens who developed their products. The chefs there developed products for Meijer. And so students got to make their own pizzas with sauce that the chefs, you know, taught them what went into making that Meijer brand sauce. So job shadows are so amazing. I've just seen so much clarification come for a student, whether, yeah, this is what I was thinking I would like, or this is not what I thought it was. Like, that smell is gross to me, and I don't want to work in this kind of smell. I'm very passionate about job shadows and career exploration in general, because for me, that was the piece that made a difference for me personally, When I went off to college, I knew that career development was what I wanted to do. I had that early interest, as I explained earlier. I also babysat a girl who had autism, and I just thought what was going on in her brain was very fascinating. So as a 17-year-old, I really had these two main interests of career development and being a teacher of autistic children. So because I had read all these career books, I knew that I needed to do a job shadow. So when I was in college, I went off to college knowing I was going to get a psychology degree because it would work for either one. But I knew I had to do a job shadow. So as a sophomore, I think I was a sophomore, I went off to the school in the area that worked with autistic children to do a job shadow. And I will never forget this. This is 30 some years ago. And I remember the teacher who I shadowed that day. She was so sweet and she loved her students so much. But she was telling me how she had to bring an extra set of clothes every day because there was a student she had that when he was upset, he could regurgitate his food and spit it at her. And I was 19. And I remember thinking, I don't ever want the possibility of that happening. So that was a one-day experience that shifted me off to the career development side. Now, personally, I've not heard that again. I think it was an experience that God gave me to help me decide. But that job shadow, that one afternoon experience is what helped me make a decision. So I see that all the time with job shadows. Kids like, yes, I'm going to move forward with this idea, or not quite right, I'm going to keep exploring. So I'm very, very passionate about job shadows and really love that I get to help create that programming. Volunteer work also is a way to gain skills, build a network, have experiences that could affirm us and what we're doing, help us learn about skill sets and experiences that we wouldn't have had. I also am very passionate about that, getting kids those kind of experiences. So that's step 2. Step 3, the decision making. You know, taking that self-assessment, some of that career exploration, understanding what money I'm going to earn someday, what kind of education I'm going to need, and start to bring it together. And looking at the pathway I need to pursue that career. Those decisions have to be made. And it doesn't have to be all figured out by the time they graduate, but getting them on the right path based on this data and experiences that they've been having. Really important step. And then actually doing it right. Developing some short-term plans. What needs to be happening this summer, what needs to happen within the year, what needs to happen within 5 years or after college. Really important to start to lay that out. And again, these workbooks I have for you will lay that right out and help you work with your child to make a plan. And I really encourage young people to break that into small bites, right? At this age, it could be very overwhelming. So we're talking, the goal is one job shadow, you know, by the time summer break. We have 3 months to get a job shadow in, or an informational interview, or to start volunteering 2 hours a week on Tuesday nights, for example. Something that's a very action step oriented that will build on itself. So those are the 4 steps: self-assessment, career exploration, decision-making, and action planning, that we want young people to understand that this is a process and each one has steps. So there's a really great website called MyNexmove.org, and it's a government website that's really designed for young people. And I love it because it kind of comes at 3 different ways that kids can engage with it. If they already know they would like to be a nurse, for example, they can plug nurse right into that first box on the left, and it will pull up information about being a nurse. You know, what a typical day is like, what kind of education you need, what kind of skill sets people who are nurses tend to have, what the job outlook is, all sorts of great information. Sometimes students just know it's somewhere in the medical field. I'm not sure where. That's where the second box comes in. Just browse it by the category, the career pathway. And the third box is, I'm not really sure. So there's an interest inventory there that students can actually take and start to ask questions. And it will give them a list of jobs that will be a good match for them based on their interests. Now that's just one piece of the puzzle. They need to have their personality and their work values and their natural skill sets part of it too, but it's a great way to get the conversation going. Each of your students in high school are working with a product most likely called Naviance or Zello or Career Cruising. So their schools have these tools to do these kind of assessments as well. So if you haven't talked with your student about that, find out what their school is using. Again, some districts use it regularly, the kids are engaged with it, and some high schoolers haven't done it since 7th grade. and it was maybe just a checkbox so the school could say they were doing the EDP, but it's not used every year like it needs to be. So find out what your student is doing. And I'm gonna pull up my internet and maybe show you a few of these live. But I did want to show you, and I'm going to stop sharing for a second so I can switch screens, so bear with me. I want to pull up the website. Okay, so I'm going to show you, actually, I need to pull up, okay. I need to, let me stop and share this properly, because sometimes it doesn't switch with me. Hang on. Okay. Thanks for your patience. Okay. So in the workbook that I'm going to be giving you, there's a series of activities to help with self-assessments. There's work values assessments. There's nice checklists of skills, because like a lot of young people just don't have the language yet for what they're good at, right? So when they see it on a list, it helps them identify, oh yeah, I have that, or I'm good at that. So all sorts of self-assessment, but one of them is called the Holland Island Vacation Planner activity. And I'm just going to show you this a little bit, so you and a way to use the results in a really quick, effective self-assessment with your child. So this is based on John Holland's career theory, and basically he says that we're all kind of in categories, and we tend to be drawn to careers that are based on our interests and somewhat personalities and values. And let me just, so these are the 6 categories of a John Holland assessment. We have the realistic, the investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional. And this activity is very simple because students are going to pretend that they're on an island, and they have to pick an island based on the description of the current residents and pick one. And then if that one wasn't an option, what would be their second island they would pick? And then the third island if the first 2 weren't available. So as you can see by this island R, the islanders describe themselves as dependable, practical, self-reliant. If we kind of skim a little bit, we see that they tend to be interested in plants or animals, tools and machines. They're interested usually in mechanical, construction, repair activities. The last line, they like things like fishing, hiking, or camping. So your child might go, yeah, I'm an R, I like that, or no, and they'll go on to the next one. So there's a description for each of these islands. And if we just kind of skim them, island I tend to be curious, intellectual, independent. They like analyzing, interpreting data. They tend to like to solve problems. Some islanders like chess or other games for strategy. So again, as your student goes through this, excuse me, they're going to start to identify which island they'd like to be on. So it's a very simple activity. We have island A, which tend to be visual arts, performing arts, self-expression. Island S describe themselves, they're more people, right? They're cooperative, they're caring, understanding, like to help people. They like things like teaching or counseling. So again, your student's going to read these 6 descriptions, identify their top island, their number 2 island, and then their 3rd island. So they end up with what's called a RACIC code. RACIC is the acronym for those 6 categories. Island E, you're seeing here, they tend to be ambitious and energetic. They tend to be interested in government and law, fundraising, owning their own businesses, sales and marketing, maybe like to be in charge of volunteer committees. Island C tend to be very orderly and efficient, lots of organization, like data, like structured and predictable environments. And you're probably starting to identify your child already. So again, they're gonna pick their top 3 island choices. So for example, I'm an S, what am I? I think I'm an SEA, I think is what I am. So once they have their code, then we can take that code to Onat online. And I'm gonna stop sharing. Sometimes it doesn't transfer, so let me make sure, because I can't really see you guys quickly to know if it's working or not. So let me just start over. So we go to this wonderful website called, this is Onat online, and it's just a fantastic tool for career exploration. And if you go under advanced search and click on interests, and I have this typed up in the presentation, which I can share with you, you'll see here those same categories of John Holland's RISIC code. We have the realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional. So we drop this drop-down menu, and actually we're gonna choose one. Let's choose realistic. So that's the first choice. And actually, I think I'm gonna start with S. Then they put in their second one. And they put in their third letter from their island. And what happens, which I love about Onat, is if they put in their codes, they hit go. Based on their John Holland code, there's going to be a list of jobs that will be provided that may be a good starting point for them to start to do some research. So this is a pretty short one, actually. So patient representatives, what is that? You know, most kids are going to find that they don't know what they don't know. And these kind of tools help give them some occupational titles that they can start to explore. I'm going to take off investigative because that's not really me. I'm going to hit go. So they can just do it with 2. But it gives them a list of jobs that they can start to do some self-assessment. As I start to scan this, I'm like, no, that doesn't really sound interesting to me. What is a concierge? I don't even know what that is. Well, let's click on it. And what we love about Onat is it gives young people some great information. So we're going to see here that they assist patrons at a hotel, apartment, or office building with personal services. We start to learn some other titles that they are called in the industry. It gives some sample tasks, some technology skills. You have to be good with some software. You definitely have to be a person who likes customer service. It's got some skill sets that they tend to like or be good at naturally. They're born with it. They're good at coordinating things. They're good at speaking with others. Some natural abilities. You can see the wealth of information that Onat provides for each job here. It gives some detailed work. I'm going to keep going a little bit. It's going to talk about what kind of education is needed, what kind of credentials are needed, if there are, some of their natural interests. And again, for young people, if it's something they're excited about, they're going to keep reading. But they might look at it and go instantly by reading just 2 sections like, this isn't for me. That's okay. Each one has a related occupation section. And I love this because it really helps with some of the exploration that kind of gets them going to a different area. Well, man, I love interviewing people. I might click on this. I want to know what that's about. So again, they're going to start to read what an interviewer is all about. That there's some jobs called admission clerks, admission representatives, a registrar. And again, they can start to click on these and learn. So that simple island activity can be used in Onat to start to customize what kind of jobs would be good. And again, we're going to go up under advanced search, back to interests, go back to where we started. They can also just put in a title up here. Well, I had physical therapist. Let's look at that. And it has all sorts of jobs like a physical therapist, but that are related. And these yellow suns mean there's a bright outlook, which means there's going to be a demand for them. Young people may have heard of occupational therapy, occupational therapists, but they've never heard about the aides. And that we'll find out they make an average of what, $55,000. Let's look. I'm going to skim by really fast here. I apologize. We're going to go to Michigan. So just by a 2-year degree, you can see that in Michigan, with just a 2-year degree, they can 10% make 52,000. Average earn about 32. And if they're working at a hospital in the Grand Rapids area as an occupational therapy assistant, Spectrum Health, Mercy, or Mayor Freebed will pay for the rest of their education. How great is that? They only have to go into debt because they'll be working in an institution that will pay the rest of any four-year degree that they decide they want. So that was just, I just wanted to show you a simple way that some of these activities can be used with your child. Whoops. Let's see. I don't think I'm sharing the right thing. Hang on. All right. So let me get back to my screen here. Okay. Okay, so like I said, this workbook that I have for you has all sorts of activities. They're very simple, very short. You can, attach some cash to each one. Let your student earn some money as they learn about themselves. So again, these are just the steps it took to get to what I just showed you on Onat online. So pretty simple. And like I said, for most young people, once we help them to start to narrow it down, they get very motivated to do that research. They're not aware of tools like that. They tell me all the time, I don't even know what's out there. How am I supposed to figure out what I want to be when I grow up when I don't even know what's out there? So when we can even show them that simple tool and how it can be used, they get very motivated. That step 2 was what's out there, that career exploration. This is where we start to go, okay, I know somewhere in the medical field, I really like the idea of that physical therapist, maybe the aide, because I really don't want to go to college for a doctorate. So maybe a 2-year degree, they average about $45,000. Okay, now what? So this is the important step where students start to kind of go, because it takes some courage to do some of the career exploration in a way, to talk to an adult for an information interview, to do the time of investigating on a website, that takes time. And they have other things on their minds. But it is an important step. And our goal really is to get a short list of jobs that they can start working with, right? Just to narrow it down where it's a manageable number. And that's where these activities really help. So the ONAT is a great tool. The Occupational Outlook Handbook, which I'll show you. MyNexmove is the ONAT, but made for teens, made for students. So it's a little easier to manage. I love Google. I'll show you how I use Google. I'm going to show you also how I do a reverse job search. These are very simple ways to use with your students to help them get some information about their careers. So the Occupational Outlook Handbook divides all the careers out there into buckets. And again, this is a very simple little activity for your student just to look at this list alone and go, okay, I want you to circle 3 of them that are of interest to you. So as you look at it, you might be even able to start assessing just based on what you know about your child, the top 3. So for me, if I was a teenager, I would have liked, I knew somewhere in education, I definitely liked the idea of being a teacher. That was good to me. I definitely liked cooking at that age. And something about social services sounds interesting to me. So those have been my 3. So when we click on it, it's going to take me to the Occupational Outlook Handbook. And is everybody seeing that? Someone's going to have to put something in the chat that you can see it. Did it transfer okay? Or so can someone unmute themselves and say, yes, we can see it? Occupational Outlook Handbook.
We can see the list, but when you click on it, it's not going anywhere.
That's what I needed to know. Thank you. I haven't figured out how to go between. So I just have to start a new share. Thank you for letting me know. Okay, so I clicked on that and it took me to the community and social service occupations of the Occupational Outlook Handbook. It's the same data where ONAT is pulled from, but again, just a different way to look at it. What I love about this is it's going to take me to this bucket of community and social service occupations, but now it's going to have some additional buckets. And again, as a young person, they can start to self-assess. They're going to know intuitively at some level. And if they don't know what it is, we encourage them to click on it to learn more. But as we look down this list, they're going to get a sense of health educators and community workers, marriage and family therapists. We got some probation officers, rehab counselors. Some teens might go, what is that? I don't even know what that is. School counselors, social and human service assistants, social workers. So it gives them some smaller buckets to get into, right? So maybe they're going to click on, I don't even know what a probation officer really does. But I love this tool, same with ONAT, because now it's going to give us some quick facts about what that is. So just at a glance, we're going to be able to see their average pay. That's going to take a bachelor's degree to get in. There's a nice outlook. About 91,000 jobs are going to be needed. So it's growing 4%. There's a video on every one of these, so you can actually see people doing the job. It talks about what they do, their work environment, how to become one, the steps, education steps, the pay. Again, all sorts of great information. And again, my favorite button is always the similar occupations. Encourage your child to click on that because it gives them now things that are similar to probation officers, things they may not have thought about. How does social work overlap? You know, what is the difference between probation and being a police officer? They can start to compare and contrast, right? Being a social worker in the law enforcement area, if they have an interest. So much of this is helping young people understand that some of these are umbrella terms, and there's just so many jobs underneath every one of these umbrellas terms, and these kind of sites can help them dig into it. So just social work alone, if we click on it, it's going to keep taking us to things that are similar to social work. And some of them might be in the health field. Some are in school settings. Some are in mental health, more specifically. So these are the kind of exploration tools that we can offer our young people to do some of this exploration. All right, so the Occupational Outlook Handbook, the address is bls.gov.ooh. But again, Onat pulls that same data. It just depends. They just have different looks to them. I think MyNexmove is pretty great too, because again, it's kind of designed for teens. But I just want to show you there's so many great things out there to help us educate our young people. Now, Google is my friend. I'm going to show you how I use Google. So I have young people say, you know, I heard that pharmaceutical representatives make a lot of money. I want to be a pharmaceutical rep. I'm like, okay, let's check it out. So we go into Google and we put in pharmaceutical representatives and always use the word jobs or career. And then I often have them put like Grand Rapids. So what usually pops up in that Google search are Indeed.com postings. That tends to be what usually the first couple hits. And I love this because when we look at the Indeed for a pharmaceutical rep, I cut and pasted the requirements out of 2 of the postings, okay? So the first posting I read, the qualifications are bachelor's degree, any major from accredited college or university. So for a young person, that's already helping them understand that, man, I don't have to have this all figured out. For this kind of job, which I think I might like, I don't have to have an exact type of degree. That takes a little pressure off, doesn't it? But they're asking for 2 to 4 years experience in respiratory pharmaceutical sales experience. Okay, so I'm gonna need some sales experience if I want to do this. How am I going to get that sales experience? That might impact a decision in high school. You have the type of job that you're going to take. If you sell shoes at one of the shoe shops, the mall, that's a commissioned sales position. What a great way to start getting some expertise if I have to start building my sales skills, right? Valid driver's license. That's important for a teenager to know when they're out making choices with their friends, right? This other one, the second one that I pulled, it tells us that a bachelor's degree in marketing, business, or a health-related science is acceptable for this one. They're looking for maybe nursing or pharmacy, or the equivalent plus a minimum of 2 years in healthcare. Okay, pharmaceutical rec, I might want to think about a major that's in more of the health field. That could help me get to this job more directly. And again, they're looking for selling, organizational problem-solving skills, excellent interpersonal communication, presentation skills. So when they have that speech class that they don't want to take in high school, now we understand how that speech class is going to connect to a job as a pharmaceutical rep. Even the problem-solving organizational, when we talk about why they have to have good organization with their backpacks, their school assignments, making sure things get turned in on time. Those are transferable skills that we need as a pharmaceutical rep. So it helps make what they're learning in high school relevant. The ability to travel, again, that driver's license piece. So when we do that reverse, it's kind of a reverse we're looking at what that job is and backing out what do we need to get there. That's what this is helping do. So I love Google for this purpose and using these job postings as a guide, as a roadmap. It helps kids start to understand what's out there, right? And what they need to get there. Here's another one. Maybe they know about marketing. And when we put in marketing jobs or marketing careers, Grand Rapids, Michigan, we're going to come across some Indeed.com again. And so here's one of a marketing director, and it talked about how this candidate, they want them to be proficient in their Microsoft Office suite. So we have to know, okay, I got to get my computer skills up to par, right? Being able to multitask, again, those strong communication skills. A lot of that's just natural ability, right? So we're going to know, man, if I'm a person who really is uncomfortable talking to strangers, this may not be the best thing for me because I'm going to do that a lot. Maybe that's not a good fit. Being a problem solver. And again, now we're going to start to see those qualifications for education. I'm going to need at least a bachelor's degree. To be the director, they're looking for a person with a marketing degree. So that's pretty specific. But wow, I have to have 5 years experience of management experience before I become a director. I need to have 10 years in the field. And I have to have this B2B experience. What is that? So even in this Indeed posting, we want to encourage them to copy that and put it into Google and find out what B2B is. So B2B, business to business sales experience. What a great term for a young person to learn now so that they understand some of the lingo as they start to explore. What we found out by that that Google search was that there's all sorts of other titles for this. And if we look at them closely, we can see that there's a marketing assistant, a coordinator. There's actually down here, the digital marketing director. I put a logo over it. So there's maybe those beginning jobs are a marketing coordinator or marketing assistant. That's part of this pathway to get to the marketing director. I don't get to do that right away. I got to build it, get those 10 years experience, but here's some other titles I'll be looking for along the way. So again, I love Google. It's a great career exploration tool. Here's one more way I use Google. So I was working with a student and we took some of their natural interests and one of their personality traits. So they love computers. They consider themselves to be very analytical. Chemistry was their favorite high school subject. So see how simple this is. It's, two things that they like to do and a personality trait, and I put the word jobs into it. And we put it into Google and we found out some of our first hits were analytical chemists or computational chemists. How many teenagers do you know are aware of those kind of job titles? So what's super fun is then they can take those titles and start to research through Google or put them into Onat to see how far they can get with researching what those are. Don't you love that? Any thoughts on that? Such a simple thing. And I get so excited when I work with kids and start plugging things into Google. Again, when we show kids how simple this can be to start to get information, a lot of that stress and anxiety comes off and it helps them start to really get excited about figuring it out. I had a boy who loved architecture. He loved history. We put that into Google and came up with that there's historical architects. He was so excited. He did not know that that was a job where he could put two of his interests together and work on specific types of architecture, right? Historical preservation. He was able then to research what it would take to get there, you know, super fun. All right, so as mentioned earlier, another way to find out what's out there is to do networking, talk to people who are already in it and having those informational interviews. We have a couple programs that help kids with this. Let me just skip to my next slide. So we have something called career chats. They are 30-minute Zoom conversations that I host with adults in a variety of professions. I happen to have a lot of them in health because I kind of piggyback that with our health career internship, which I'll explain here in a minute. But the career chats are 30-minute Zoom conversations. They're live, they're after school. And I kind of put my Oprah Winfrey hat on and start interviewing them. But students can ask questions through the chat. So students are able to get what they need from these role models through these 30-minute conversations. And man, the information is gold. Yes, they're not at, for example, say we had a respiratory therapist on. Yes, the students aren't in the hospital. They're not getting that sensory of what it is like to be in a hospital, but they're getting enough information where they can start to say, yeah, this is for me, or no, this isn't for me, or wow, I didn't even know this existed, right? So career chats are fantastic. It's something we offer. The Groundhog Shadow Day just took place on Friday. We had the snow day, and again, we didn't have as many kids participate, but we had employers who offered 60-minute sessions, and they focused on, it could be just like I had a speech therapist, and she just talked about her own path, her own job. She modeled some different speech therapy techniques with the kids. They loved it. 1 hour. We had an architectural engineering firm who actually had 4 different role models as part of their hour, talk about their different roles at that company. So we have this programming to support your students' career exploration. And so I want you to go to career readiness here at the bottom, .kentisd.org, and I'll put that in the chat here, to check out what we have to offer your students. And, you know, sometimes it's not very, they're like, oh, something my kid doesn't like is, you know, they're not offering anything that my kid would like. Let us know what your kid wants to do. And then I can search out getting role models in the area. Oops, it wasn't a live link. You have to cut and paste that into your browser. Talk and tours. I have one coming up on Tuesday at Mary Free Bed. This could be a 60-minute session. They're going to put together, they have put together a panel of 4 different professionals. We're going to have a nurse, an orthotist, prosthetist, which a lot of young people don't know what it is. They're the artificial limbs, for example, prosthesis and orthotics, a psychologist, and a physical therapist. So they're going to talk about their jobs. They're going to show us some video of Mary Free Bed behind the scenes. Again, kids can ask questions. Great way just to explore. Boom. I love those events because a kid might come in thinking they want to be a physical therapist, but then during the session, they didn't even know what a respiratory therapist was, or they didn't know what a rec therapy was, or didn't know what occupational therapy was. So it's great for just expanding their minds. We work with schools to get your students out for industry tours. We have this health career immersion program. Go to my next slide here. It starts next week. If you have a child that's interested in health, I can still get them in, so no worries. But it's a 6-week commitment. It's virtual. What they have to commit to are 2 30-minute career chats a week for 6 weeks. And what's cool about the virtual is that they don't, I like them to be live with me, Tuesdays and Thursdays from 3:30 to 4, so they can ask questions. But if they happen to be an athlete or work, they can watch the recording and still do the reflection and still earn the certificate of completion when they finish this virtual internship. In addition to the career chats, we also have them do an informational interview, and I have them do self-assessments. So it's a great career exploration activity and a way that they can have something for their college apps or their scholarship applications that they had made this commitment and followed through on these activities. So I will be putting my contact information in, but if you have a student 9th through 12th grade can participate in this. We're really excited about the virtual format for this. It's really allowed us to open it up to serve more students. So those are some of those experiential experiences that we're providing. Again, job shadowing once COVID goes through. We have some resources. I'll show you how to help your kids set up a job shadow. I'm a big proponent of kids making those phone calls or those emails, but you can certainly help get some leads for them. Adults love it when kids call and to set up a job shadow. 99.9%, they're going to say yes if they can. I mentioned the talk and tours. We have one coming up at the Grand Rapids Police Department. We have Meyer Pharmacy coming up this spring. We have an engineering firm. So we have a variety. Again, we'll be doing more and more for next year. I want to get more specifics in some of the arts areas. All right, just want to do a check on time. It's about 10 minutes before 8. I love What Color is Your Parachute? It's a book made for teens. It's got this whole career development process laid out with wonderful activities. It's like my career development Bible. So if you're looking for a book to read to help your kid. Road Trip Nation is a PBS series where recent college graduates go into a big green bus or camper and cross-country talking to adults who are successful in the areas of interest that these recent college grads are in. Road Trip Nation's one of my favorite TV shows. They have a book. It's really super helpful. I will send this information to you, so don't worry about writing it down. I should show you. So I see your question. Let me just answer that question as we finish up. I'm gonna go to one more website to show you just a great resource here. But explore environmental science careers. I think volunteering is gonna be a great way to start in that. We have some great nonprofits that have that focus. And for students to be volunteering and working alongside adults who have that same passion and are probably employed in it is a great way for them to spend some time. So volunteering would be great. Doing a job shadow, or ideally during this virtual time, informational interviews is what I recommend. Let me go back to the internet. I want to show you something. Can so does everybody see Road Trip Nation? I guess if it's not, let me know. I'm assuming that you can see it. If you go to roadtripnation.com, under career exploration, then interests. I don't want to overwhelm you with resources, but I love this one. This is based on that PBS show called Road Trip Nation. They have busted out to a whole bunch of resources for us. So if we look down here, all sorts of careers, the buckets again, the big picture buckets, right? So say you have a kid who's into art. Let's click on art. That they have 92 different videos. We're going to read about people of jobs that we never knew existed. We're going to get to hear about a person who's a cartoonist with also a roboticist. How fun for a kid to explore that. Someone who's in packaging, using their art ability for packaging. A children's songwriter, a director of photography over here. Well, if we click on one of these, you're going to see that there's just a short video of them talking about their career. What I love about this, though, it also talks about their milestones, you know, where they went to college, some of the bumps and bruises they had along the way, some of the experiences they had, how they got their education, and then the three buckets that kind of came together, because again, it's not just one bucket, their art, but technology, being creative. Some advice to get started. And they always talk about their hurdles and their challenges that they overcame. I absolutely love this website. Looks like she even has a book, or there's a book associated with it. She must have been one that got interviewed on the Road Trip Nation TV show that had women in STEM, which is really cool. Okay. So I'm going to put some links for you into chat, but I want to show you this. First one I'm going to send you is this book called Career Coaching for Parents. It's the one that had the John Holland Island activity. And it actually was produced by a grant in Virginia. So I called them a couple years ago to get permission to use it, and the department doesn't even exist anymore. So we republished it. So I love it because it's got all sorts of activities for you. So I'm gonna copy and paste that one in first into, and I'll send all this. I have your emails from your registration. So I will send this to you, including my PowerPoint. But this is a link to this particular parent guide. So you can click on that and open it up in your browser right now. You can save it. And then I love this one too. Canada, like I mentioned, is just really far ahead of us in a lot of ways, and they just have great resources for parents. So this one's Career Coaching Your Teens. I'm going to put into chat right now. They're both in Google Forms. Okay. I know there's a lot of information. Did I overwhelm you? Oh, you're not seeing my chat entries, huh? Oh, I see why. Let me fix that. Thank you for letting me know. Let me try that again. I had it just, someone just got a personal chat from me. But we're all Crystal Harmony, so I don't know who it was. Okay, so this first one right here is the guidebook I just showed you that has the John Holland Island activity in it. And then the second one is just a terrific guide called Career Coaching Your Teens. So yeah, I get a little excited about all this. So if you have any questions, now's the time. What do you think? Was that helpful? Too much? I appreciate you guys making time on a weeknight. I know life is full, even though we're at home so much, but I really appreciate being able to share this with you.